Borobudur is not a temple book. Section 6. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and Research. Complete info. Waatsap to +6 2813 2132 9787. Strong evidence of the great civilization on the big island called Sunda land, and major events that occurred at that time were recorded and summarized in a large temple in Java, the Saba civilization, which in the era after its destruction was named Nusantara. The temple was the Borobudur temple. Borobudur is a temple located in Magelang, Central Java, Indonesia. The location of the temple is approximately 100 kilometers southwest of Semarang, 86 kilometers west of Surakarta, and 40 kilometers northwest of Yogyakarta. The name Borobudur. Many theories try to explain the name of this temple. One of them states that this name probably originated from the word Sambarabudara, which means mountain, Budara, where the slopes are located terraces. In the Kayumbungan inscription or the Karang Tenga inscription and the Tri Tepuzan inscription, the name is the same as the meaning of the Borobudur temple as Kamulan Ibumashambara. The name Borobudur, which was later written as Borobudur, was probably written by Raffles in English grammar to refer to the village closest to the temple, namely the village of Boro. Most temples are often named after the village where the temple stands. Raffles also suspected that the term Budur might be related to the Javanese term Buddha, which means ancient, hence the meaning, Boro ancient. The surrounding environment, Borobudur, Pawan, and Mendet are stretched in a straight line, which shows the unity of the symbol, which later the writer will explain what it means. Located about 40 kilometers, 25 miles, northwest of Yogyakarta city, Borobudur sits on a hill on a plain surrounded by two pairs of twin mountains. Mount Sundoro Summing to the northwest and Merbabu Merapi to the northeast. To the north there is the Tidar Hill. Closer to the south there is a line of Manore Hills, and this temple is located near the confluence of two rivers, namely the Progo River and the Elo River. East. According to Javanese legend, this area known as the Kedu Plain is a place that is considered sacred in Javanese belief and is lauded as the Taman Island of Java, because of its natural beauty and soil fertility. There is no written evidence that explains who built Borobudur and when it was built. For this reason, the author tries to explore and then explain it in the form of a book that is subject to study, with the hope that in the future there will be information that is closer to the truth of a historical fact. There is confusion over whether the ruling king in Java at that time was Hindu or Buddhist. If the current general view regarding the construction period of this temple, Wangsa Sailendra is known to be a devout Mahayana Buddhist, but the findings of the Sojomurto inscription indicate that they may have originally been Hindu Shiva. Unclearness also arises regarding the Lara Jonggrang temple in Prambanan, a magnificent temple which is only estimated to have been built by the winner Rakai Paikatan. The above three paragraphs are excerpts from Wikipedia. Really, Borobudur is a Hindu temple, and a Buddhist temple. Is it true that it was also founded by Buddhists who believe in Mahayana Buddhism? Is it true that it was founded by Wangsa Sailendra? Really designed by Gunadharma architects? Borobudur historical evidence originating from the previous noble culture of the Indonesian nation, which was built long before 563 BC, the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, namely where civilization at that time was still performing worship with the peak of deification to the sun. Or Lord Ra. Some call the god Agni the god of fire. The initial form is the three basic forms that are still plain are called the Pundan Barandik. There are those who assume and determine the number of the founding year of Borobudur by comparing the Javanese numbers and the numbers inscribed on the lower part of the temple, try to see if they are Javanese numbers. Borobudur was founded by a civilization that was more advanced than the civilization that existed in the world at that time. A civilization that had communicated and inter-ethnic relations was marked by a basic form that had similarities, namely the initial form of Borobudur, Padang Chanjar Temple, Suku Temple and temples. Chichen Itza, the Maya of Latin America and the pyramids of Egypt, is a civilization that originated from the civilization of the archipelago. The following is an explanation of Buddha, which explains that Borobudur is the original temple of the Nusantara civilization. Buddha, The historical figure of Buddha Siddhartha Gautama was born to the Sakya tribe at the beginning of the Magadha period, 546 to 324 BC, in a city, south of the Himalayas called Lumbini. Today the city is located in southern Nepal. He is also known by the name Sakyamuni, literally, wise man of the Sakyans. The Buddha's reluctance to appoint a successor or formalize his teachings resulted in the emergence of many schools over the next 400 years. First the Nikaya Buddhist schools, of which only Theravada remains today, and then the formation of the Mahayana schools, a pan-Buddhist movement based on the acceptance of new scriptures. Mahayana comes from Sanskrit. Mahayana, which literally means great vehicle, is one of the two main schools of Buddhism and is a term for the division of the Buddha's philosophy and teachings. Mahayana, who was born in India, is used in three main senses. As an extant tradition, Mahayana is the largest collection of the two Buddhist traditions in existence today, the other being Theravada. This division is often debated by various groups. According to the way of classifying the philosophy of Buddhism according to the Mahayana tradition, Mahayana refers to the level of spiritual motivation, also known as Bodhisattvayana. Based on this division, another optional approach is called Hinayana, or Shravakayana. This is also known in Theravada teachings, but is not considered a suitable approach. According to the structure of the Vajrayana teachings regarding the division of teaching paths, Mahayana refers to one of the three paths to enlightenment, the other two being Hinayana and Vajrayana. The division of teachings is in Vajrayana Buddhism, and is unknown in Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism. Although the origin of Mahayana's existence refers to the Buddha Gautama, historians have concluded that Mahayana originated in India in the 1st century, or 1st century BC. According to historians, Mahayana became a major movement in Buddhism in India in the 5th century. From that time on, the text Mahayana manuscripts began to appear on inscription records in India. Prior to the 11th century, when Mahayana was still in India, the Mahayana sutras were still in the process of being refined. Therefore, various sutras of the same silk may appear. These translations are not considered by historians in shaping Mahayana history. In the course of its history, Mahayana has spread throughout East Asia. The countries that adhere to Mahayana teachings today are China, Japan, Korea and Vietnam, and adherents of Tibetan Buddhism, ethnic Himalayas caused by the Chinese invasion of Tibet. The current schools of Mahayana Buddhism are Pure Land, Zen, Nichiren, Singen, Tibetan and Tendai. The last three have both Mahayana and Vajrayana schools of teaching. Buddha was born in the 6th century BC. After attaining perfect enlightenment at the age of 35 to Mahaparinibbana at the age of 80, he spent a lifetime preaching and spreading his teachings. For 44 years, he taught and preached day and night, sleeping only 2 hours a day. Buddha spoke to all human circles: kings and princes, Brahmins, peasants, beggars, scholars and ordinary people. The teaching is adjusted to the experience, level of understanding and mental capacity of the listener. What he taught is called Buddha Vacana. At that time there was no known Theravada or Mahayana. After the formation of the Buddhist monks and monks associations, the Buddha outlined certain disciplinary rules called the Vinaya as guidelines for such associations. All of his teachings are called the Dhamma, including discourses, sutras, sermons to monks, nuns and ordinary people. The First Supreme Assembly, 3 months after Buddha Mahaparinibbana, his closest followers held the banquet in Rajagaha. Maha Kassapa, the most revered and elder monk, presided over the assembly. Also present were 2 special followers of 2 teachings, Dhamma and Vinaya, discipline, ethics. One is Ananda, the Buddha's closest friend and follower of 25 years. Endowed with a great memory, Ananda was able to repeat what the Buddha said. Another is Upali, who remembers all the Vinaya precepts. Only these 2 teachings, Dhamma and Vinaya, were presented at the first meeting. Although there is no disagreement regarding the Dhamma, excluding the Abhidhamma, there has been some discussion about the Vinaya rules. Before the Buddha's death or parinibbana, he told Ananda that if the Sangha wanted to correct or change some unfounded rules, they could do it. But at that time, Ananda was so grieved that the Buddha was about to become parinibbana, so he did not ask the Buddha which of these rules he meant. Since the members of the congregation could not agree on what constituted unfounded rules, Maha Kassapa finally determined that the rules laid down by the Buddha were not changed and no new rules were added. No reasons were given for that. Maha Kassapa said something that, if we change the rules, people will say that the Venerable Gautama's followers changed the rules even before the funeral pyre was lit. In communion, the Dhamma is divided into several parts and each part is left up to the senior follower and his students to memorize. Then, the Dhamma was taught by the teacher to his students orally. The Dhamma is recited daily by a group of disciples who frequently double-check one another to make sure nothing has been missed or added. Historians agree that the oral tradition of speech is more accurate than the writing made by a person according to what he remembers after several years of events. The Second Great Communion. 100 years later, a second assembly was held to discuss the Vinaya rules. There was no need to change the rules 3 months after the Buddha's parinibbana because of the little political, economic or social change in this short period of time. But 100 years later, some monks saw the need to change some groundless rules. The orthodox monk says there is nothing to change while others want to change the rules. Finally, a group of monks left the congregation and founded the Mahasangika, the Great Society. When it was still called Mahasangika, there was no known Mahayana. And at the second meeting, only matters relating to the Vinaya were discussed and there was no debate about the Dhamma. At the Third Great Assembly, 3rd century BC during the reign of King Asoka, a third assembly was held to discuss differences of opinion among monks of different sects. At this assembly, differences are not confined to the Vinaya but also to do with the Dhamma. At the end of the meeting, the chairman of the congregation, Mangaliputtissa, wrote a book called Kathavatthu. Kathavatthu. This book proves the fundamental errors and wrong views and theories held by several schools. This teaching was approved and accepted by this society as Theravada. The Abhidhamma Pitaka was entered at this gathering. After the Third Communion, Asoka's son, Bhikkhu Mahinda, took the Tripitaka and the explanations discussed in the Third Assembly to Sri Lanka. The text that was brought in is still preserved in Sri Lanka without missing a single page. The text is written in Pali. This text is based in the Magadhi language used by the Buddha. It was not known what was called Mahayana until this period. Some sources say that a rival supreme assembly was held on the part of the future Mahayana sect. However, the fact is that this school later included in the less support for Mahayana, and could even be said to compete with Mahayana in northern India. The Kushans supported Buddhism and the Fourth Buddhist Council was opened by Maharaja Kanishka, in about 100 AD in Jalandhar or in Kashmir. This event is often associated with the rise of the Mahayana school officially and the breakdown of it with Theravadaism. The Theravada school does not recognize the validity of these councils and often calls them councils of heretical monks. Between the 1st and 1st century BC, both the terms Mahayana and Hinayana appeared in the Pundarika Saddharma Sutra or the Lotus Sutra of the Doctrine of Virtue. Around the 2nd century AD, Mahayana was only then clearly defined. Nagarjuna developed the Mahayana emptiness philosophy and proved that everything is empty in a little book. Madhyamika Karika. Around the 4th century, Asanga and Vasubandhu wrote a lot of Mahayana books. After the 1st century AD, Mahayana people confirmed their position and after that the terms Mahayana and Hinayana became known. Mahayana creates bodhisattvas whereas Theravada considers a bodhisattva to be one among us who devotes his whole life to attaining perfection, whose main goal is perfect enlightenment for the happiness of beings in the world. The Mahayana texts themselves state that the goal of bodhisattvas is to attain Buddhahood in order to help all beings, because only by becoming a perfect Buddha can one have the ability to enlighten other beings. Without first attaining enlightenment yourself, how is it possible to enlighten other beings? This is the response of other Buddhists. The author's conclusion is that Borobudur, which is considered a Buddhist temple, must be corrected and clarified. Is it true that it represents Buddhist teachings like the original teachings taught by Siddhartha Gautama? If the assumption and interpretation of anything in Borobudur temple that explains that Borobudur is Buddhist teachings and has Mahayana flow, it means that it does not represent Buddhism. How can something that is considered a splinter can represent something authentic? If true, Borobudur temple is a Buddhist temple. In order to know more about Buddhism and its development, we can see in the explanation below about the history and years of the development of Buddhism. We can find out in what year the claims about the construction of Borobudur were considered Buddhist temples. Is it true that at that time it might be built more than one temple briefly by rulers or kings who believe in Buddhism, what year and kingdom they are? Buddhist Timeline. The purpose of this timeline is to provide a detailed account of Buddhism starting from the birth of Buddha Gautama to the present, then whether Borobudur's claim to be a Buddhist temple is true. Some sources mention Buddha's birth in 563 BC and others 624 BC. Theravada Buddhist countries tend to use the latter. This puts all of the years on the list below back about 61 years. There is also controversy regarding the date of the beginning of the Buddhist era, with 544 BC and 483 BC being proposed as the times for the attainment of Buddhist parinibbana. As Wilhelm Geiger points out, according to Sri Lankan records, the Dipavamsa and Mahavamsa are the main sources of ancient South Asian chronology. They gave Ashoka's purification date Abhisheka up to 218 years after parinibbana. Chandragupta Maurya ascended the throne 56 years earlier, or 162 years after the parinibbana. Thus, the approximate date of Chandragupta's ascension is known to be in 2 years from 321 BC, from Megasthenes. Therefore, the approximate time of the parinibbana is between 485 and 481 BC, so it fits perfectly with the dating of the Mahayana tradition of 483 BC. 1. 563 BC. Siddhartha Gautama, who later became the Buddha, was born in Lumbini into a royal family in the Republic of Shakya, now part of Nepal. In the explanation below we will later understand who is meant by the Sakya or Saka. 2. 534 BC. Prince Siddhartha comes out of the palace for the first time and sees 4 apparitions: an old man, a sick person, a corpse and a holy man. He was surprised by the first 3 things. He did not know what age, sickness and death were, but was inspired by a saint that he gave up all his wealth. He left his home and lived with 3 hermits. However, he wanted something more than fasting until he was hungry, so he became a religious teacher. 3. 528 BC. Siddhartha Gautama attained enlightenment in Buddha Gaya, now known as Bodh Gaya, then traveled to the Deer Park in Sarnath, near Varanasi, India, and began to teach the Dharma. 4. 528 BC. According to legend, Tapasu and Baluka, 2 merchant brothers from Akala, now known as Yangon, offered Siddhartha Gautama the first dish as enlightened Buddhas. The Buddha gave 8 strands of hair to the brothers. The strands of hair were brought back to Myanmar and buried in the Shwedagon Pagoda. Therefore, according to myth, that year was the founding time of the Shwedagon Pagoda. 5. 490 to 410 BC. The lifetime of the Buddha, according to current research. 6. 483 BC. Gautama Buddha passed away, attained parinibbana, in Kusinara, now known as Kushinagar, India. 3 months after his death, the first Supreme Court was held. 7. 383 BC. Second Great Assembly held by King Kalasoka at Vesali. 8. 250 BC. The Third Great Assembly, convened by Ashoka the Great and accompanied by Moggaliputta, compiles the Kathavatthu to refute the heretical views and theories held by some Buddhist sects. King Asoka issued a number of edicts, Maklumat Asoka, regarding the kingdom to support Buddhism. 9. 250 BC. King Asoka the Great sends various Buddhist missionaries to countries as far away as China and Mon and the Malay kingdoms in the east and Hellenistic kingdoms in the west, to introduce Buddhism. 10.250 BC. The first examples of fully developed Karawihi manuscripts begin in this period. Asoka's records in Shahbazgari and Mansehra, a region northwest of the Indian subcontinent. 11. 3rd century BC. Indian traders regularly visit ports in Arabia, explaining the widespread use of place names in the region with Indian or Buddhist origins. Example: Bihar, from the Sanskrit Vihara, a Buddhist temple. Asoka's emissary Buddhist monks brought Buddhism to Suvarnabhumi, whose location is still disputed. Dipavamsa and the Mon believe that it was a marine settlement in what is known today as Burma. 12. 220 BC. Theravada Buddhism was officially introduced to Sri Lanka by Venerable Mahinda, son of King Ashoka of India during the reign of King Devanampiya Tissa. 13. 185 BC. Brahmin general Pushyamitra Sangha overthrows the Maurya dynasty and establishes the Sangha dynasty, apparently starting a wave of persecution against Buddhism. 14. 180 BC. Greco-Bactrian King Demetrius invaded India to Pataliputra and founded the Indo-Greek Empire, 180 to 10 BC. At this time Buddhism flourished. 15. 150 BC. The Indo-Greek king Menander I embraced Buddhism as guided by a sage named Nagasena, according to the report of Milinda Panna. 16. 120 BC. The Chinese Emperor Han Wudi, 156 to 87 BC, received 2 golden Buddha statues, according to inscriptions in the Mogao Caves, Dunhuang. 17.29 BC. According to Sri Lankan historical records, the Pali Canon was written during the reign of King Vadagamini, 29 to 17 BC. 18. 1st century BC. Indo-Greek governor Theodorus buried relics of the Buddha, dedicating them to the deified, Venerable Shakyamuni. 19. Year 2 AD to the capital of China, which gives oral teachings on Buddhist sutras. 20. 65 AD. Liu Ying's endorsement of Buddhism as the first recorded act of Buddhist practice in China. 21. 67 AD. Buddhism entered China thanks to the efforts of the 2 monks Kashyapa and Dharmaraksha. 22. 68 AD. Buddhism officially established in China with the discovery of the White Horse Temple, English, White Horse Temple. 23. 78 AD. Ban Chao, a Chinese general, conquers the Khotanese Buddhist Empire. 24. 78 to 101 AD. According to the Mahayana tradition, the Fourth Great Council took place under the rule of King Kanishka, near Jalandhar, India. 25. 116 AD. The people of Kushan, under the leadership of Kanishka, establish a kingdom centered in Kashgar, also take control of Khotan and Yarkand, formerly Chinese colonies in the Tarim Basin, now known as Xinjiang. 26. 148 AD. And Shigao, a Parthian prince and Buddhist monk, arrives in China and continues to make the first translation of the Theravada text into Chinese. 27. 178 AD. A Kushan monk, Lakaksama visited the Chinese capital, Luoyang, and became the first translator of the Mahayana script into the known Chinese language. 28. 2nd century, 3rd century. Buddhists from India and Central Asia visited Vietnam. 29. 3rd century. Use of the Kharosthi text in Gandhara ceases. 30. 3rd and 4th centuries. The Kharosthi text was used in the cities south of the Silk Route, namely Khotan and Nia. 31. 296 AD. The earliest Buddhist text in Chinese, dated this year, Zhu Fo Yao Ji Jing, found in Dalian, late 2005. 32. 4th century. 2 monks from China brought manuscripts to the kingdom of Goguryeo, Korea, and founded paper making in Korea. 33. 320 to 467 AD. A university in Nalanda supports 3,000 to 10,000 monks. 34. 399 to 414 AD. Fa Xian traveled from China to India, then returned to translating Buddhist works into Chinese. 35. 5th century. The kingdom of Funan, now located in central Cambodia, began to promote Buddhism in order to replace Hinduism. Early evidence of Buddhism in Myanmar, Pali notes. Early evidence of Buddhism in Indonesia, statues. Early reinterpretation of the Pali texts. Stupa at Dambulla, Sri Lanka, built. 36. 402 AD. At Yao Xing's request, Kumarajiva visited Chang'an and translated many Buddhist texts into Chinese. 37. 403 AD. In China, Wei Yuan argued that Buddhist monks should be exempt from paying homage to the king. 38. 405 AD. Yao Xing respects Kumarajiva. 39. 425 AD. Buddhism is considered to have reached Sumatra. 40. 464 AD. Buddhabhadra arrives in China to deliver the teachings of Buddhism. 41. 495 AD. The Shaolin Temple was built in the name of Buddhabhadra, upon an edict by the king Wei Xiaowen. 42. 485 AD. 5 monks from Gandhara visited Fusang, Japan, or maybe the American continent, where they introduced Buddhism. 43. 6th century. Zen followers enter Vietnam from China. The Jataka story was translated from Persian through an order from the Zoroastrian king, Khosrau I of Persia. 44. 527 AD. Bodhidharma settled in the Shaolin Temple of Henan Province in China. 45. 552 AD. Buddhism was introduced to Japan via Baekje, Korea, according to Nihonshoki. Some students place this event as 538 AD. 46. Early 7th century. Jingwan began carving sutras into stone at Fangshan, Yuzhou, 75 kilometers southwest of the city now known as Beijing. 47. 607 AD. Japanese royal envoys were sent to the Sui dynasty in China to obtain copies of the sutras. 48. 7th century. Xuanzang visits India, noticing the persecution of Buddhists by Sasanka, king of Gauda, state in northwest Bengal, before returning to Chong'an in China to translate Buddhist texts. End of sporadic Buddhist rule in Sind. King Songtsen Gampo of Tibet sent an envoy to India to obtain Buddhist texts. The last record using the Kharosthi script among the Buddhist community around Kucha. 49. 671 AD. Buddhist pilgrim from China, Yi Jing, visits Palembang, the capital of part of the Buddhist kingdom of Srivijaya on the island of Sumatra, Indonesia, and records a total of 1,000 monks who settled. Yuesong returned to Korea after studying Chinese Huayan Buddhism and founded the Huayan group. 50. 736 AD. Huayan was sent to Japan via Korea, when Robin invited the Simsang Korean Huayan monk to deliver teachings, and officially established the Japanese Kegon tradition at Todaiji Temple. 51. 743 to 754 AD. Chinese monks Zhongjun attempted to reach Japan 11 times, succeeding in 754 to establish the Japanese Ritsu group, which specialized in studying the Vinaya monastic rules. 52. 8th century. Buddhist Jataka stories translated into Syrian and Arabic as Kalalog and Damnag. An account of the Buddha's life was translated into Greek by John of Damascus and widely disseminated to Christians as the story of Barlaam and Husafat. Until the 14th century, the story of Husafat became so famous that he became a Catholic saint. 53. 8th century. Under King Trisong Dutsen, Padmasambhava traveled from Afghanistan to establish Tantric Buddhism in Tibet, which became known as the Nyingma Tibetan Buddhist group, replacing the main religion of the Bonpo kingdom. Buddhism quickly expanded to Sikkim and Bhutan. 54. 760 AD. Construction of the Borobudur temple began, a famous building in Indonesia, possibly as a non-Buddhist holy place. The building was completed as a Buddhist monument in AD 830, after 50 years of work. Those are general estimates and assumptions that have already been published. This book is trying to clarify them. 55. 804 AD. Under the rule of King Kammu of Japan, a group of 4 ships sailed from China. Of the 2 ships that arrived, one was boarded by the Kukai monk, who was recently awarded the glass by the Japanese government as a monk, who absorbed Vajrayana teachings in Chang'an and returned to Japan to found the Shingon group. Another ship boarded by the monk Saicho, who returned to Japan to establish the Tendai group, was partly based in the Chinese Tiantai tradition. 56. 838 to 847 AD. Enan, a pastor of the Tendai group, visited China for 9 years. He reached both the famous Buddhist mountain, Wutashan, and the capital city of China, Chang'an, keeping detailed diaries of major sources for this period of Chinese history, including Buddhist persecution. 57. 841 to 846 AD. King Wuzong of the Tang dynasty, given name Li Yan, reigns in China. He was one of the 3 kings of China to ban Buddhism. From 843 to 545, Wuzong carried out anti-Buddhist persecution, which steadily weakened the institutional structure of Buddhism in China. 58. 9th century. Tibet. Decline in Buddhism. Persecution by King Langdharma. 59. 10th century. Construction of a Buddhist temple in Bagan, Myanmar begins. In Tibet, a strong revival of Buddhism began. The Kaodong group of Zen was founded by Dongshan Liangji and his followers in southern China. 60. 971 AD. The Chinese Song dynasty ordered the Chengdu sculptor to engrave the entire Buddhist canon for printing. This work was completed in 983 AD. A total of 1,300,000 blocks have been generated. 61. 991 AD. A copy of the Buddhist canon from the Song dynasty arrives in Korea, impressing the government. 62. 11th century. Marpa, Konchog Galpo, Atisha and others introduced the Sarma lineage to Tibet. 63. 1009 AD. The Ly dynasty of Vietnam begins, which is brought in part by a Persek. 64. 1010 AD. Korea begins carving of printed block editions of the Buddhist canon. The settlement date is not known. The canon was continually expanding, with new Chinese texts being added. 65. 1017 AD. In Southeast Asia, and specifically Sri Lanka, the order of bhikkhunis, female monks, was halted due to the invasion. The lineage of monks in Sri Lanka was later revived with monks from Burma. 66. 1025 AD. Srivijaya, a kingdom considered Buddhist by current mainstream accounts based in Sumatra, was attacked by the Chola kingdom of southern India. The kingdom remained, but its interests began to wane. Immediately after the attack, the seat of royal government moved northward from Palembang to Jambi Melayu. 67. 1044-1077 AD. In Burma, the first pagan king, Anuruddha, came to power. He converted the state religion to Theravada Buddhism with the help of monks and books from Sri Lanka. He is also said to have converted to Theravada Buddhism by a Mon monk, although other beliefs are still present. 68. 1057 AD. Anuruddha of Myanmar captures Thaton in northern Thailand, strengthening Theravada Buddhism in the country. 69. 1063 AD. A copy of the Khitan canon arrives in Korea from China. 70.1070 AD. Monks from Pagan arrive at Polonnaruwa, Sri Lanka to reaffirm the Theravada line of ordination. 71. 1084-1113 AD. In Myanmar, the second pagan king, Khyonzita, son of Anuruddha, came to power. He finished building the Shwizigan Pagoda, a shrine for relics of the Buddha, including a tooth brought from Sri Lanka. Various inscriptions record that he was an incarnation of Vishnu, Chakravartin, a bodhisattva, and Dharmaraja. 72. 12th century. This Sanskrit language was later written in Devanagari. 73. 1125 AD. King Haozong came to power during the Chinese Song dynasty and banned Buddhism from promoting the Tao. He was one of the three kings of China who banned Buddhism. 74. 1113 AD. Alongside who reigned in pagan Myanmar until Narathu, his son, killed him by strangling and taking over the power. 75. 1133-1212 AD. Honen founded Pure Land Buddhism as an independent sect in Japan. 76. 1164 AD. Polonnaruwa, Sri Lanka was destroyed by foreign invasions. With the guidance of two forest monks, Ven. Mahakasapa and Ven. Sarapada, Parakramabahu I reunited the monks into the Mahavihara sect. 77. 1181 AD. Jayavarman VII, a bodhisattva, a staunch follower of Mahayana Buddhism, although he also protects Hinduism, takes control of the Khmer Empire. He built Bayon, the most prominent Buddhist building in the Angkor temple complex. This brought together the stages of the later transition of Khmer society to Theravada Buddhism. 78. 1190 AD. In Myanmar, the descendants of Anuruddha succeeded in taking over control with the help of Sri Lanka. Pagan was in a state of anarchy. The new regime reshaped Myanmar Buddhism to its Theravada form in Sri Lanka. 79.1236 AD. Bhikkhus from Kansapuram, India, arrive in Sri Lanka to revive the Theravada ordination lineage. 80. Late 12th century. The largest Buddhist education center in Nalanda, India, center of Buddhism, where various subjects are taught. Subjects such as Buddhism, logic, philosophy, law, medicine, grammar, yoga, mathematics, alchemy and astrology, were destroyed, plundered and burned by the invaders of Islam. Nalanda was supported by kings from several dynasties and served as a major international teaching center. 81. 13th century. Theravada surpasses Mahayana, previously lived on par with Hinduism, as the dominant form of Buddhism in Cambodia. This change was influenced by Sri Lanka. In Persia, the historian Rashid al-Din Hamadani recorded about 11 Buddhist manuscripts circulating in Arabic translation, of which one is known as Sukhavate Vyaha and Karanda Vyaha. Parts of the Samyutta and Anguttara Nikaya, as well as parts of the Maitreya Vyakaran, are also identified in this collection. 82. 1222 AD. Birth of Nichiren Daishonin, 1222-1282, the founder of Nichiren Buddhism who came from Japan. 83. 1238 AD. Kingdom of Thailand, Sukhothai is founded, with Theravada Buddhism as the state religion. 84. 1227 AD. Dogen Zenji took the Kyoudong Zen group from China to Japan as the Soto sect. 85. 1244 AD. The Eiheiji Soto Zen temple and monastery were founded by Dogen Zenji. 86. 1277 AD. Pagan Empire. Myanmar. In Myanmar began to break up after his defeat by Kublai Khan at the Battle of Ingasongyeon, in Yunnan, near the Chinese border. 87. 1285 AD. Arghun makes Ilkhanate a Buddhist country. 88. 1287 AD. The Theravada kingdom in pagan Myanmar fell to the Mongols and was overshadowed by the Shan capital at Ava. 89. 1279-1298 AD. Sukhothai's third and most famous ruler, Ram Kamhang, decisive Rama, came to power and made Laos a follower. More modern Thailand, Pegu, Burma, and parts of Peninsula Malaysia, who evoked the artistic tradition of Sukhothai. After Ram Kamhang's death, Sukhothai lost control of his territory and his followers became independent. 90. 1295 AD. Mongolian leader Ghazan Khan converts to Islam, ending the lineage of Tantric Buddhism leadership. 91. 1305-1316 AD. Buddhists in Persia attempt to change Uljetu Khan's religion. 92. 1321 AD. Sojiji Soto Zen temple and monastery founded by Kizan Zenji. 93. 1351 AD. In Thailand, Yu Thong, possibly the son of a Chinese immigrant family, founded Ayutthaya as its capital and gave it the name Ramathibodhi. 94. 1391-1474 AD. Gyalwa Jendan Drugpa, the first Dalai Lama in Tibet. 95. 1405-1431 AD. A Chinese eunuch admiral, Zhenghe made 7 trips in this period, through Southeast Asia, India, and the Persian Gulf, East Africa, and Egypt. At that time, Buddhism was already firmly established in China, so visitors will surely have an experience of Chinese Buddhism. 96. 1578 AD. Altan Khan of Tumd conferred the title Dalai Lama to Sonam Gyatso, who became known as the third Dalai Lama. 97. 17th and 18th century. When Vietnam was divided during this period, the Nguyen rulers of the South supported Mahayana Buddhism as an integrative ideology for the ethnically diverse society of the kingdom, which was also inhabited by Champa and other minorities. 98. 1614 AD. The Toyotomi family rebuilds the grand image of the Buddha at the Hokoji Temple in Kyoto. 99. 1615 AD. The Mongols, the Oirat convert to the Gelug group of Tibetan Buddhism. If we look at Buddhas born up to the 20th century as well as during the centuries of the spread of Buddhism, especially the early days to the glorious spread supported by the Asoka kingdom, it is not seen that Buddhist missionaries built a large place of worship. Why are they only considered to have built temples on the island of Java? If it is true that in Java the existing temples are Buddhist temples, of course there are already many temples in the place where the Buddha was born, which is certain today. Of course we can still see thousands of Buddhist temples in India. Should not a source have more than it is considered not a source? Below is the year related to the assumption of the spread of Buddhism in the archipelago. We will start from the claims based and the year after. Above we know that Borobudur's claim based and the Buddhist Pulsifa does not support it, while the more striking philosophy is the original teachings of the archipelago, which depicted in reliefs and statues at Borobudur temple. Below the writer will explain later. 1. 250 BC. The Third Great Assembly, convened by Ashoka the Great and accompanied by Moggaliputta, compiles the Kathavatthu to refute the heretical views and theories held by some Buddhist sects. King Asoka issued a number of edicts, Maklumat Asoka, regarding the kingdom to support Buddhism. 2. 250 BC. King Asoka the Great sends various Buddhist missionaries to countries as far away as China and Mon and the Malay kingdoms in the east and Hellenistic kingdoms in the west, to introduce Buddhism. It was during this time that after Buddha died, Buddhism flourished, through missionaries supported by the kingdom. 3. 5th century. The kingdom of Funan, now located in central Cambodia, began to promote Buddhism in order to replace Hinduism. Early evidence of Buddhism in Myanmar, Pali notes. Early evidence of Buddhism in Indonesia, statues. Early reinterpretation of the Pali texts. The stupa in Dambulla, Sri Lanka, was built. What is noted in this century is that the Funan kingdom began to advocate Buddhism in order to replace Hinduism. The kingdom of Funan, now located in central Cambodia, began to advocate Buddhism in the context of replacing Hinduism. Hinduism is a religion without a founder and without knowing its origins if in Cambodia there is mention of Hindu teachings. What Hinduism is like in the Funan kingdom, regarding Hindu teachings we will discuss after this, so it's not as easy as what is written above that the teachings in Funan are Hindu. Let's follow about the Funan civilization before converting to Buddhism. We can know from the oral stories of the people. Why oral stories? Because stories written, especially about civilizations so far, often seem unsupportive and do not describe the authenticity of a civilization. Yellow River Valley areas of development of Chinese civilization during the Shang dynasty, plus or minus 1500 BC, scattered around the Yellow River Valley. The kingdom of Funan is a kingdom that was founded in the 1st century and experienced destruction at the beginning of the 6th century, around the Mekong River. Phaya Naga are snake-like creatures that are believed by local people to live in the Mekong River in Laos. The people of Laos and Thailand connect dragon fireball with this creature, which is probably a giant mottled eel's Anguilla marmorata, which grows abnormally large, or a kind of eel that has not been found. In a study of myth in this area, it is stated, the dragon is the protector of this area. The dragon symbol was developed during the reign of Anavung. Liup Fasoon, an important poem from the period, discusses the relationship between Laos and Siam in a veiled manner, uses the dragon and Garuda. The dragon is used extensively in iconography in Laos and is an important part of Lao culture throughout the countries around the Mekong River. Dragon and Garuda are animal icons in the indigenous beliefs of the archipelago. This proves that the pre-Buddhist culture in Funan was a civilization originating from the archipelago and not Hinduism originating from India. Garuda is also found in previous Japanese culture. Besides, the sun is a source of the traditional community philosophy of Japanese ancestors, which also comes from the noble beliefs of the archipelago. Garuda in Japanese is spoken as Karura. In the next explanation, the writer will explain that Garuda is a creature of pra-Adam in the form of a bird, and during the time of Solomon this creature became his army and met the kingdom of Saba, the kingdom of Saba in Java. We return to the discussion about Borobudur and Buddha and the development of Buddhist teachings, which are considered by Buddhist teachings to be reflected in the reliefs of Borobudur. The position of the Buddha sitting cross-legged with the Buddhist version of the naming is the practice of meditation and asceticism carried out by the original civilization of the archipelago, before Buddha was born, and even the original teachings of the archipelago were the basis for Buddhism, so the position of physical achievement of sitting in the Buddha was following the physical position. Rituals performed by adherents of native religions based in the archipelago. 4. 425 AD. Buddhism is thought to have reached Sumatra. We will look at this year's history in the archipelago before 425 AD. Java Island. The existence of Buddhist influence in the period after Aki Tayam, namely by marrying the daughter of Nyi Pahachi Larasati with a traveling merchant who also served as a rezi, namely Dewawarman I. 130 AD. Aki Tayam, the predecessor of the Salakanagara state in Teluk Lada, Pandeglang. Not belong to Buddhism. From the royal records after that it looks counter to the new teachings of Buddha. The kingdom after which embraced the original teachings of the archipelago, can be seen in its successor kingdom, namely the Gala kingdom, Sunda. 362 AD. Dewawarman I to Dewawarman VII, following the teachings of the sun. 363 M. Dewawarman VIII, Jayasingawarman, Tarumanagara, following the teachings of the sun. 5. 671 AD. Buddhist pilgrim from China, Yi Jing, visited Palembang, the capital of part of the Buddhist kingdom of Srivijaya on the island of Sumatra. Indonesia and recorded a total of 1,000 monks who settled. Returned to Korea after studying Chinese Huayan Buddhism and founded the Huayam group. 6. Palembang, the capital of some of the Buddhist kingdoms of Srivijaya on the island of Sumatra. Buddhist kingdom in Sriwijaya, statement of the Buddhist kingdom. Srivijaya, is it true Sriwijaya of the Buddhist kingdom? Let us examine the Srivijaya kingdom in the explanation of. Borobudur was not built by the Sailendra dynasty and was not made by the architect Gunadarma, below. 7. 760 AD. Construction of the Borobudur temple began, a famous building in Indonesia, possibly as a non-Buddhist holy place. The building was completed as a Buddhist monument in AD 830, after 50 years of work. The estimates and general assumptions circulating. The construction of Borobudur temple began in 760 AD. This is not the right explanation why we can see in the explanation below about. Borobudur was not built by the Sailendra dynasty and was not made by the architect Gunadarma. 8. 1025 AD. Srivijaya, a supposedly Buddhist kingdom based in Sumatra, was attacked by the Chola kingdom of southern India. The kingdom remained, but its interests began to wane. Immediately after the attack, the seat of royal government moved northward from Palembang to Jambi Melayu. 9. 1084–1113 AD. In Myanmar, the second pagan king, Hyonzita, son of Anarata, came to power. He finished building the Shwizigan Pagoda, a shrine for relics of the Buddha, including a tooth brought from Sri Lanka. Various inscriptions record that he was an incarnation of Vishnu, Chakravartin, a bodhisattva, and Dharmaraja. 10. 1970s AD. Indonesian Archaeological Agency, English. Indonesian Archaeological Service, and UNESCO carry out the restoration of Borobudur. The author concludes how a temple is said to have Buddhist philosophy while the claim about Mahayana Buddha is an understanding which is different from the original teachings of the founder of his teachings, Siddhartha Gautama. On other matters, we will examine whether everything in Borobudur is true. Depiction of Buddhist teachings, as well as statues or statues of people sitting cross-legged, is that true of the Buddha? Question. If the Asli Nusantara culture contains the words Hyang, Shiva, Brahma and Wisnu, are these teachings imported from outside the archipelago, Indonesia? When did the missionaries preachers from mainland India come and spread their teachings in the archipelago? Let's take a look. Review the academic studies. Study of Hinduism. This is a fusion or synthesis of various traditions and cultures in India. The origin of ancient Vedic Brahmanism or Vedic based. The synthesis appeared around 500 to 200 BC, with diverse roots and without founding figures growing side by side with Buddhism until the 8th century. From North India, Hindu synthesis spread south. The end of the 18th century onwards, the British called the inhabitants Hindustan, that is, a nation to the southwest of India. Hindu became the equivalent term for Indians, who were not Muslims, not Sikhs, not Jains, not Christians, not Buddhists, who includes a wide range of adherents and practitioners of different traditional beliefs. The suffix ism was added to the word Hindu around the 1830s to refer to religion. Then the term was accepted by Indians themselves in terms of building national identity to oppose colonialism. Hinduism was reaffirmed as a gathering place for coherent and independent traditions, supported by Sanskritization. Since the 19th century, under the dominance of Western colonialism and Indology, that's when the term Hinduism came into wide use. And there is an unwritten rule that saints do not spread outward teachings. From the above explanation, we understand that the term Hindu is an antonym to other beliefs. Around the early 16th century, then the word Hindu, with the addition of ism, was added to the word Hindu around the 1830s to refer to culture and religion. The meaning. The teaching, Hindu, refers to religion. In India there was only around 1830, meaning this formally. Hinduism, India only existed after the era of the kings of the archipelago embracing Islam in the 11th century. In the archipelago, in the original teachings of the people, the mention of the word Hyang is a word which shows the understanding of the absolute God. The one Almighty God, Hyang Widi Tunggal, and the procession of worship, formed from two syllables, namely worship and word, Hyang. In one being. Prayer. This word existed before entering the other, teaching. In Bali, our ancestors taught us to pray hyang, in pura, open air, tri-hita karana, not in ashram, pray with tri sandhya, panka semba, not with maha mantra Hare Krishna Hare Rama, and not become the eternal servant of Lord Krishna in the Vaikunta realm. Because Diwa, for us, is a manifestation of Ida Sang Hyang Widi or Brahman. Our ancestors taught us to consider important respect for the ancestors of Upakara in Sangha. Pedharman, Ka Hyangan Tiga Sad Kayangan and its rituals from Rong Tiga or Sangha Kemulan. Rebuttal, from the word Sang Melinga or M uploading Laika, Swastika, cycle. This symbol is used and misinterpreted as Hitler. Pa Ra, Hyang, the sun or Sang Surya as a symbol of light, Hyang, is a word that shows the understanding of the absolute, God. God Almighty. Hyang Widi Tungal. The people of West Java know him better as Sang Guru Hyang, or Sangkuryang. Some people call him Guryang, which means Guru Hyang. The term signer as Astra Ra Matahari, Chahaya Diwa, and Tarang. In the development of the Dhamma teachings, developed in the plains of India, underlies two main teachings of Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism, with his character, Mahavira. In 5 BC and in 9 AD a new religion was born to distinguish neither the two nor Islam in India. In accordance with the basic form of the teachings of the sun, as the source of light, there are 5 main colors of Pankawarna light which form the basis of the philosophy of life of followers of the original teachings of the archipelago. The white light in the east is called Purva, the place of Hyang Iswara. The red light in the south is called Daksina, the place of Hyang Brahma. The yellow light in the west is called Pasima, the place of Hyang Mahadeva. Filled circle the black light in the north is called the north, the place of Hyang Wisnu. All colors of light in the center are called Madhya, the place of Hyang Siwa. If there is a similarity in the mention of this word in India, this is proof that the teachings originated from us, not vice versa. When and who was the pre-Islamic teaching figure of India who visited the archipelago? There is no, because there is an unwritten rule that saints do not spread outside the territory. The original teaching of the archipelago, the general concept of the 5 qualities of light, is actually the value of time in the count of Wuku. The 5 Wuku, 5 are not bad and everything is good. Sang Hyang Siwa, the god of fusion of all light color. Lord Shiva, the fusion of light, has been mistaken for god of destruction. The original teachings of the archipelago in the puppet stories are symbolized by Jamparang Pana Chakra. Chinese pilgrims from Fa Hin 399 to 414 AD to It Shing 671-695 AD. Coming to the ancient archipelago to study, not to bring, Buddhism from his country to spread here. And Palembang was not the center of Buddhism in the past, don't get me wrong. Let alone participate in publishing it without a basis. Evidence of historical facts. Bodhi tree is also about what Atisa Diphamkara wrote, Palace of the Silver Umbrella, while studying with Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti at the former Dharmic Original Learning Center at the Srivijaya Kadachuan Center before and after Islam. About Asoka are British archaeological historians John Hubert Marshall and Alexander Cunningham, a British archaeologist and engineer known as the father of the Archaeological Survey of India, with works on heritage sites such as the Bharhut Stupa, Sarnath, Sanchi and the Mahabodhi Temple. The Purana and Mahavamsa state that his father Asoka was Emperor Maurya Bindusara and his grandfather was Chandragupta, the founder of the empire. Ashokavadana stated that Ashoka's mother was the daughter of a Brahmin from Champa and was prophesied to marry a king. Her father took her to Pataliputra where she was appointed Bindusara's harem and eventually became its chief queen. Vamsathapakasini or Mahavamsa Tika, a discussion about the Mahavamsa, calls him Dharma, Dhamma, in Pali, stating that he belongs to the Maurya Kshatriya clan, a Divyavadana legend calling himself Janapada Kalyani. The Purana states that Ashoka's father Bindusara reigned for 25 years, not 28 years as in the Sri Lankan records. If this is true, Asoka's ascension 3 years earlier to 268 BC, and we assume that Buddha died in 486 BC, then Ashoka's time was in years. 268 BC. Moggaliputta Tissa, protected by Ashoka, sent 9 missions. Each mission consisted of 5 monks and led by an elder. He sent his own son Mahinda, accompanied by 4 other Theras, Ithya, Udaya, Sambala and Battasala. Furthermore, with the help of Moggaliputta Tissa, Ashoka sent to distant regions such as Kashmir, Gandhara, Himalayas, the land of Yonas Greece, Maharashtra, Suvarnabhumi, Svarnadvipa, Nusantara, Indonesia. In the 18th year of Ashoka's reign, mentioning the names of those who went on pilgrimage also carried the following missions. Mahinda to Sri Lanka, Majantika to Kashmir and Gandhara, Mahadeva to Mahisa Mandala, Rakita to Vanavasa, to Aparantaka, West India, Mahadama Rakita to Maharashtra, Maharakita to Greece, Majima to the Himalayas, Sona and Uttara to Suvabhumi, Svarnadvipa, Nusantara, Indonesia. During the year of the 19th reign, Ashoka's daughter, Sanghamita, went to Sri Lanka to form an order of nuns, taking the saplings of the sacred Bodhi tree with her. The former center for Maju Nusantara civilization, a place to teach and learn the teachings of the archipelago's ancestral, Dharmic original, before the Srivijaya era was named Mongtakui, the local people previously called Muotakui, after the Dutch era until now published as Muara Takus Temple, complete with the university and traces of its Bodhi tree, people named it Ashoka tree. The Bodhi tree has its Latin name Ficus religiosa. The species known as Bodhi tree, Pipala tree, people tree or Ashwata tree, a fig species native to the Indian subcontinent, southwest China and Indochina, it belongs to the Moraceae family of fig and mulberry. In the highest area around the Puja center, at the site of the estuary Takus Kampar Riau, there are still traces of a Bodhi tree, Ashoka, brought by King Asoka to the archipelago, when he performed Samadhi, at the place of Dharmic masters, Brahmins Bhattara Guru Rshi, Dachuik performs Tapo Batharik, Upasana, Kamala contemplation, completing the end of his lesson. This was also done by the first King Asoka and Atisa Dipamkara Shranyana of Tibet. This king of Ashoka brought Ashoka tree seeds from his country, did Samadhi until the seeds took root and grew. The estimated time was 10 to 20 days. In this place also among the students from Tibet learn and do it. Atisa Dipamkara Shranyana, year 1013 AD, he traveled to Srivijaya, stayed for 12 years to study, then returned to India, died 1054 in Naitang, Tibet. Atisa Dipamkara Shranyana offered many jewels and gold. His followers also offered 1 gold coin for each of his students. Guru Dharmakirti Suvarnadvipa. Guru Dharmakirti Suvarnadvipa offered Buddharapang to Dipamkara, and he stayed at the Silver Umbrella Palace in Suvarnadvipa for 12 years. While here he slept on the floor, at the foot of his master's bed as a sign of respect for the pupil to the teacher. So, in the archipelago long before BC, also in the 4th to 7th centuries AD, Chinese pilgrims came to learn about the Dharmic original teachings of the ancestors of the Indonesian archipelago, which were called Dhamma, not bringing teachings from his country and then spread to the Indonesian archipelago. The most important excavation by Indonesian Buddhist scholars is the concept of divinity in Buddhism, which is adopted from various studies of ancient texts in the book Sanghyang Kamahayanikan, the teachings of the ancestors of the Indonesian nation, namely the concept of Hyang Widi Tunggal, and on the basis of one of them. Here, the state entered Buddha into one of the official religions of the state. Mahayana in Indonesia was published there, after 1955, when Ashin Jinarakita returned to Indonesia, and also when the state allowed the national Waisak ceremony at Borobudur. From now on, Borobudur is published based on Mahayana Buddhism. Text literacy 12 words. Svarga, in the closed bas-relief, prove this is not Buddhism. Nalanda copper palette, found at Vihara I Nalanda in India, written by King Phala, descendant of Sailendra, named Balaputredua of Svarnadvipa. Nalanda, in Bihar, India, was founded in 427 AD, built by and on the initiative of Sailendra Srivijaya from Sumatra, Indonesia. He built Nalanda for the sake of development, whose education center is in the archipelago, named Dharmaphala. In the area of Nalanda University in Bihar, India, precisely at the site of temple number 3, it is called by the name Sarapada Stupa. The relief panels are sculpted on top of the tower, Saraputra. Saraputra is the son of his mother Shri. Because of that mother's name he is called Saraputra, his father Mathara. The names of the mother and child are clearly the names of Nusantara, not India. He who brought the Dharma teachings there became the forerunner to the birth of Buddhism, which is now labeled in Borobudur. The original culture of the archipelago was previously developed, perfectly recorded in the culture of Bali, Sunda Wiwitan, Tengger, Malam, Marapu, Talatang. The basic principle of his teachings is called Dharma Dhamma. European philologists call this Dharmic, which is actually Dharmic original, which grows in Indian soil into 3 teachings of Hindu, Buddhist and Jaina. If the culture, Asli Nusantara, there is the word Hyang. Shiva, Brahma and Vishnu. This is the name and the original teachings of the Indonesian archipelago, because no missionaries, preachers from mainland India came and spread their teachings in the archipelago. Understand this. Borobudur book is not a temple. Section 6 continues to Section 7. Santo Saba works. Created as a discourse to scientists based on subjective academic studies and studies, this needs to be re-examined by experts in their fields. In an effort to restore the true history of Indonesia. INDONÉSIARYÄ. By Santo Saba. Exploration and research. Complete info. Waatsap to +62813 2132 9787.